Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 6, 2020 school committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. As always, these meetings are audio and video recorded. We'll start with introductions to my left.
Natalie Barrow, student representative.
Jeff Bowe.
Good evening, Mike Moran.
Good evening, Mark Branco, Assistant Superintendent.
Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Ryan McMahon.
Becky Stanton.
Julie Costucci.
Anthony Tenorella.
Joe Messina, Business Manager.
Sharon Fairbanks.
If you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will seek a motion to approve the September 15th, 2020 Superintendent's Evaluation Subcommittee Minutes, the September 29th, 2020 Policy Subcommittee Minutes, and the September 29th, 2020 School Committee Minutes. Executive session minutes not to be released at this time.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0-0. Correspondence?
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take 9B out of order.
I'll second it.
To the discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0-0. That's fine.
So, Mr. Chair, at this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Paulett and a couple of friends from TMS. They're going to do a little presentation about the start of school at TMS and what it looks like this year in our hybrid learning model. So, Mr. Paulett, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So thank you for having us. It's a lot of fun to come here and let the experts actually talk about what the school is really like. You got to tour with me, saw what would look like kind of with kids and not necessarily as kids. So I figured tonight we put 8 slides together. I gave them some editing rights. They did a little bit, but they have a lot to say, and I'm going to let them do it. I'll interject now and then, but they get to live it every day. So let's let it roll, and they'll talk to Dr. Branco about moving it along when they're ready. So this is Ryan McMahon there, Ryan Manning and Grace Gillis. They're both 8th graders on both 2 separate teams, so they'll give you a little different perspective. Awesome. All right. Go right ahead.
Mornings and afternoons. I take the bus in the morning. So on the bus, we all have assigned seats where you normally sit with yourself, but if you have a sibling, you sit with them. When you get off the bus to go to school, you go off one by one so that you're 6 feet apart. And on the sidewalk to get to school, there's traffic cones in the middle so that you can stay on the right side so you can get to the school safely without colliding with people.
I take my mom's car to school, and when we get there, our parents are instructed to move all the way up so there can be like 5 cars at a time. When I get out, I usually say hi to Mr. Follett, and then I walk into the school and get to my class as quick as possible. Mm-hmm.
So you can see in the middle picture on this display that there's been a fair amount of traffic. In the morning, it's gone pretty well. In the afternoon, Grace, you want to talk a little bit about what it's like in the afternoon?
It's very crazy in the afternoon. There are a lot of cars. Usually when we come out, there's a whole group of people that are trying to social distance, but can get hard when it comes to having a lot of kids being there. But usually same rules, like 5 cars at a time, and sometimes it can be pretty confusing to students and parents, and usually we just get in the car and take the ride out.
We've staggered the dismissals, so the high school is dismissing a little later than we are, and as you can see in that picture, the line will be quite long, so we try to get them moving, but sometimes it's harder to find your parent, right away. But today we did it in 7 minutes, which was a new record, and we were pretty proud of that.
Next slide. This year has begun with a new model. Instead of the students moving around to all the classrooms, the teachers do. They have rolly carts with a monitor and a school Chromebook. On the monitor, there's the kids online and the Zoom caller that or the Google Meet, and on their smaller computer they have like their shared screen or anything they're working on with the classroom.
Yeah, and as you saw when you took the tour, I'm assuming, you saw the desks and the little X marks is where we usually get up to stretch in between the transition classes, so it's really nice to have that stretching space. And yeah.
Next slide.
Hi.
We have a concurrent classroom, so the teachers will teach the people in the classroom and the people on the Google Meet. There are some up and downsides to this. The downsides are sometimes people on the Zoom call or the Google Meets will have internet problems or will lose power and they won't be able to learn what some people in the classroom or people that do have internet will be able to learn. Some upsides is so the first day I was in school, I got dismissed, and when I went back to the last period, I could log in at home so that I didn't miss that.
Why'd you get dismissed?
I got my braces off.
That's a good reason.
We'll have to bring them back so you can see us.
Do you have any more?
So, like Ryan said, it can be very confusing, especially when, like today, the Wi-Fi goes down, but the teachers did handle it well today, so yeah, they did a good job, and the students did really good at like keeping up and asking questions and all that.
Talk a little bit about Google Classroom, how that goes.
Do you want
Yeah. Google Classroom, they normally post attendance, like a Google form on there so that they can keep track of all the people online that are at home. And then they normally post an assignment. You click onto the assignment, they'll talk about it, then they'll normally let you go and complete it, and then they'll call you back and they'll either go over it or say it's homework. Next one. Next slide.
Tell us a little bit about the fully remote days. What's that like from a kid's perspective at home?
At the start of the fully remote days, we normally get into a big Google Meet with everyone in our team, and we talk about like current events happening and the agenda for the day. And then we'll break off into our first period, where there will be 2 Google Meets set up, where there will be the first and second period class in one, and then the 5th and 6th period class in another one.
So there can be some problems with like when teachers are having a hard time connecting, and they're like kids going crazy, kids, middle schoolers being middle schoolers and like doing their thing. So the teachers can be like stressed out, and I understand that it's probably really hard to be a teacher. And it can be hard when there's like, especially on the first Wednesday, there was a lot of trial and error with having like 100 or more kids on the meet, and it was like really busy and people were getting kicked off because of how many people there were, and I think breaking off into those like different people was very helpful and like saved a lot of troubles and connection issues.
One good thing about the fully remote days is that you get to see people from like your other cohort or other classrooms, which helps.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the next one. You want to do this one?
Yeah, sure. Lunch, a middle schooler's favorite part of the day. So on the as you see in the pictures, obviously, there are X marks. For the first day, we ate inside, and we all sat on the X marks, made sure we were like socially distanced, and the little boxes that we had were fun. I didn't actually sit in one, but I watched someone sit in one, and it looked pretty cool. It was really controlled and nice. And for the rest of the time, we've been eating outside, which is also really nice because the weather is really nice. on the fences there are like little signs to tell like which classrooms should be in which areas, which can sometimes be a little lonely, especially if you don't have a lot of friends in your cohort. But there's definitely ways to get around that. Like me and my friend came up with bringing whiteboards, just write in. But yeah, it's also fun to make new friends in your cohort, which I've been doing. And another thing I noticed is the teachers are really good. If they see you alone, they come in to check up on you, make sure you're doing all right. Like one of my teachers, Miss Triaka, she came up to me and we had a conversation because she noticed that I was a little alone. And Miss Malouse, she does a really good job at getting kids who are lonely and are sitting alone and kind of gets them together to be friends, which is what happened to me. So that's a really good part about it. What about you?
You pretty much said everything I was gonna say. So next slide. I'll do.
I can do it.
You're on?
A couple. Well, we just put a bunch of the different, you guys can talk about each of the signs, but I think the building looks a lot different to look down and look around in the building, and these are some of the things you'd see. So why don't you guys kind of talk a little bit about that?
So our Tyngsborough Middle School is a two-story building. So we have one staircase to go up and one staircase that you use to go down. In the hallways, there's a blue tape line in the middle so that you can stay on the right side so you don't collide with anyone coming on the other way. Throughout the school, there were stands with hand sanitizer on them, so you can clean your hands and make sure you don't have any germs on them.
You definitely have to be more aware with this new bunch of signs everywhere. It can get confusing sometimes. I have to find kids trying to talk to each other, but having trouble because they're yelling across the hall. Because they're have to stay 6 feet apart, and sometimes they just come together on accident, or sometimes purposely, I don't know. I'm guilty of this, accidentally kind of started colliding. It's very different and weird and new and confusing.
But everybody's wearing masks,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yes.
have been really good about it. If teachers say you need to separate a little bit, they do a really good job. They didn't talk a little bit about, right before lunch, there's a mask break. So that our schedule gives them basically a 50-minute block in the middle of the day where they can take their masks off reasonably, either outside, or we can even do a mask break in the room when they're eating snack. But it's a long block in the middle of the day that gives them a nice break from. And 8th graders have their mask break at 10:10, and they go till almost 11 with lunch, and then they have their second half of the day in the academics. We build a mask break in at the end if they want that as well. So this is mine, I'll do this one. So for fully remote students, and we'll have a presentation from remote students at some point, but you can see we've set up a file cabinet for the few things that people who are completely remote will need. We try to go as paperless as possible, but there are sometimes books that they need, or there could be larger maps, and that was one example that they had to take home. So we have it broken down into the 3 different grade levels and parents, and there's actually now on the side there's a hand sanitizer thing there as well. And all parents are coming into that main foyer. Hit the button that you can see with the yellow sign there, and that is where, as far as parents are coming, they're not coming into the building at all. Kids are being sent out to them. If we have a student who's sick, Mrs. Riley will walk them out to their parents outside, so we're trying to keep it as contained as possible. One of the things that's been really great is, despite some of the challenges the first couple of days with technology, the IT department did a great job of creating a website with a number of help options for parents. We were getting a lot of phone calls initially, and those have been cut way down because our secretaries and our counselors have been able to direct parents to this help desk. And I think a lot of it has been taken care of that way. Also, our teachers have been putting things out so that parents get that as well. And Thursday night, we're going to do our virtual open house. If the principal can get the meets correct to parents, which she tried numerous times to get sure that you got the right meet, but that'll be our job. Parents will come in to the meets, 25-minute meet with questions and a little bit of an overview, like Ryan and Grace talked about how it's set up. so parents will get a better feel for what it looks like from the kids' end in the school, and then what we're trying to do. So we'll do a Lakeview, we'll do a Winslow, and we'll do a remote open house for parents exclusively. And we'll put whatever we have up on the website if they can't make it for that. So I think this model has steadily improved. I think that what Ryan and Grace described, that first Wednesday fully remote day, looks a lot different on the fourth one, which will come up, tomorrow. I think that the teachers have employed a lot of different models and strategies. So what Ryan described, that you can go off and work and come back at the end of the meet, is really what they're trying to do on their Wednesdays. So it's much more student driven, and it's not a lot of new instruction, it's a lot of continued instruction, which I think benefits kids because they feel like they can catch up that day. Talk a little bit about homework and like what does homework look like this year, or is there homework really this year?
Homework is just things you didn't finish in class that they want you to finish by a due date. It's not necessarily like they give you a sheet and you complete it by tomorrow. It's more like you do a map of the United States and it's due by Thursday or something like that.
Yeah, they do a lot of that. And yeah, a lot of online
A
stuff.
lot of online homework, yeah.
Alex, all that.
Next slide.
Okay.
So if you guys have questions for the experts, and maybe one or two for me, that's...
Great job, guys. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. We'll open up to the committee for any comments or questions. All right, well, I have some. I made some notes. So what's your favorite thing about remote learning or hybrid, and what's your least favorite thing?
My favorite thing is that I don't go to school on Mondays and Tuesdays. I don't have to wake up early on Mondays. But my least favorite thing is probably that I don't get to see a lot of my friends. And like when I do at school, you can't really get close to them because you gotta stay with your room.
Right.
My favorite thing is when the teachers kind of let us go into breakout rooms where we can kind of work on a project and we actually get to talk to each other. It feels much more social, and like we're like not actually in school, but it makes us feel more connected to each other. My least favorite thing is definitely when there can be confusions online, when like my computer's being slow and I'm trying to catch up with notes, and that can be a little confusing and a little frustrating. So yeah.
Okay. So compared to the remote learning in the spring, how would you compare remote learning now to then? You think it's improved? Do you think it's the same? Do you think it got worse?
I think it's definitely improved. In the spring, I think we only had 2 meets.
Yeah.
We only had 2 meets per week, and it wasn't really interactive. A lot of people didn't have their camera on. They didn't really talk. There was always like the same people talking every time. But now a lot of people are like more comfortable with typing in the chat or unmuting and talking.
I feel like it's much less confusing. I feel like teachers would just give us a handful of work, which allowed a lot of procrastinating, as people do. So there was a lot of that, especially in me. I would wait to do all the work and then be like, well, I gotta do all this work now. So it was definitely more confusing and definitely more independent than we have now, which is, I like dependent on being able to connect with my teachers and stuff.
Cool. All right, I got a quiz for you both. Have you been to the tent outside? The big tent?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many fire extinguishers are in that tent?
Cause you asked.
She got it right.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? So, one of the things that our teachers talk a lot about is using different platforms and different applications to enhance the instruction. What do you like that teachers are doing differently now with technology, or what really hooks you in the classroom or engages you the most, do you think?
Well, we have these things like Jamboard and iCivics where they have like games or things where you get to type and like little sticky notes about civics or math, for example, is what we use Jamboard for. And that really helps people like engage in learning and things.
And was that something you saw last spring, or is that new this year that you're seeing?
That's definitely new.
Yeah, awesome.
Didn't have that last spring.
Great. Great. How about you, Grace? Anything?
Kind of like what Ryan said, I like how they utilize a lot of websites like games, like quizzes, iCivics, Jamboard. I feel like it really helps me like learn, especially when it's in game form. I feel like quizzes really helped me on my test for math, so it was very helpful to have that. Where last year was just kind of a little bit disorganized.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyone else have any questions?
I just want to say thanks for coming. I think you guys have done a great job. The presentations are always so great from your schools, so thanks for taking your evening to come here and see us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Nice work. Thank you very much.
You guys are awesome.
Have a great night. Okay. Visitors, comments, and questions. I see none. Share the success. Natalie?
In Tyngsborough High School news, our fall sports and clubs are in full swing. The Yearbook Club is currently collecting all senior photos, baby photos, and profiles. The submission deadline for the senior photos and baby photos is on October 16th, and the deadline for the profiles is on October 23rd. All photos and profiles are asked to be emailed to elizabeth.spear@tyngsboroughps.org or to yearbooktiger@yahoo.com. Student Council had their first meeting today. The Lakeview cohort met today, while the Winslow cohort will meet on Thursday. New members from any grade are always encouraged to join, and elections for Student Council will take place next week, and plans are underway for many events that will make a difference in the THS school and in our community. The girls' field hockey team was victorious in their game against Groton Dunstable on Monday, and the girls' soccer team was also victorious in their game against North Middlesex, which was today. And the boys' team also played their first game today against North Middlesex, and the golf team played in their first golf match of the season as well this past Sunday. Congrats to all teams. The following dates are of importance. On October 14th, the SAT exam will be administered at THS during the school day. On October 17th, the PSAT exam will take place, and progress reports will come out on October 23rd. At TES this week, the Tiger Talk News started. Mrs. Manganis and Rykard, these school counselors, are excited to be the news anchors for this year. The first newscast of the week will be focused on upcoming events, students and staff birthdays, stripes discussions, and other topics to set tone for this week. The second newscast will be able to build community by sharing good news, stripes shoutouts, and throwback staff photos. Erica Cooper, TES math coach, has been working closely with the Lesley University consultant. Dr. Hillary Chrisberg is helping to provide in-class and remote support to classroom teachers as they adjust to the synchronous teaching learning model. According to Mrs. Kavanaugh, with each day that goes by, they are seeing their students settling into their routines, feeling more comfortable with the technology, and adapting to this new way of school. And all of the TMS updates have been covered for the night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Subcommittee update. Dr. Branco?
So, Mr. Chair, the policy subcommittee met this evening and reviewed 15 school health policies. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Michelle Riley and the rest of the TPS nursing staff who did a ton of heavy lifting on this pre-COVID in February and last March. They took copious notes, did a lot of research on our current practices, and did some policy research as well to make sure that these 15 policies are up to date and reflective of what we're doing in the district now. So there are 5 of the 15 have no changes, 5 were simply citation changes and hyperlinks that needed to be updated, and then there are 5 more with language changes, and I think the chair has motions to address those.
I do. So at this time, I'd like to seek a motion to reaffirm the following policies. 9.1, child abuse neglect. 9.2, HIV/AIDS school attendance policy. 9.3, immunization. 9.4, school health records. 9.6, dismissal from school illness. 9.7, communicable disease. 9.11, head lice. 9.12, integrated pest management plan. 9.14, student nutrition and physical activity. And 9.15, pandemic influenza.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0-0. I'd like to seek a motion to accept the following policies as a first read. 9.5, accidents or injuries occurring in a school or on school grounds. 9.8, student medication. 9.9, physicals for athletic programs. 9.10, school health programs. 9.13, student staff with life-threatening allergies, LTA.
I'll make that motion for a first read.
And I'll second it.
Discussion?
Are these in our drive?
Yes. All 15 are in the drive.
I don't see them, but okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 6-0-0. Personnel.
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Unfinished business. School committee update.
About our school committee update this week, and Dr. Branco will bring it up for us. So we'll go to the first slide. I know everyone's getting sick of hearing me say it, but again, we're going to continue to lean on context and data as we think about making all decisions for our students and staff. Next slide, please. So these are the next graphs. These are directly information from Mass DPH. I don't need to read the graphs to you. And I know that the chair is going to work with the COVID review team to potentially look at enhancing these graphs a little bit and provide a different layer of context potentially.
I want to present the data in a slightly different format so it's more meaningful.
Great. So that's your expertise here, so we will work with you to make sure that we can get that presented moving forward. But regardless, the information is timely, the information is accurate. Total tests in Tyngsborough, you can see where we are, just over 4,000. Next slide, please. You can see the positive case count continues to rise, which it naturally will do. Next slide, please, Mark. 14-day window. So this was the big one last week. We had spent 2 weeks in the red. We were hopeful that after our meeting last Tuesday night, that the next day on Wednesday, when the Mass DPH released the information, that we'd be in the yellow. We were fortunate to reach the yellow with 9 cases per 100,000 over a 2-week period. So I'm hopeful that tomorrow night we will again be in the yellow or green, even better. But I'm happy that we're trending in the right direction. Next slide, please. Latest metrics for Tyngsborough. Again, that's just showing that we are, in fact, in the yellow. Next slide, please. Again, we had 9 positive cases per 100,000. More information for you, more data for you, just to peruse. Next slide, Mark. Tyngsborough summary. Again, I don't need to read slides to you. We'll go to the next one and spend some time here. So let's start here. So, as you are all aware, last Friday, we had a positive test case in the TES community. We notified parents by 3 or 4 o'clock that afternoon. Contact tracing took place, and we were able to say that by Monday morning, late Monday morning, we had received notification that contact tracing was complete, and anyone that had been considered close contact within 6 feet for 10 minutes was contacted by the Board of Health, the local Board of Health, and or the CTC, which is the Contact Tracing Collaborative. As you are all aware, today we had another positive case at TES. Much smaller circle of people to contact trace, and we were able to do that, or the Board of Health was able to do that contact tracing much more quickly and efficiently today, and we were able to put notification out by 4 o'clock this afternoon that anyone who had been considered close contact was already contacted. So the numbers in this graph right here reflect right now, based on the 9/30 report, there will be 0 active cases at TES. we know that tomorrow when we get the bi-weekly analysis from Mass DPH, that we're going to have one active case that's been in TES because of the time frame it landed. Last Friday was 10/2, and you can see the window it measures. The case that happened today will not show up on our 2-week report or on any state 2-week report until the following week. So I just put those in as placeholders, so I'm acknowledging that we know that we've had 2 active cases, but they've not showed up on the Mass DPH report yet. So one will show up tomorrow, and today's case won't show up until next Wednesday's report. So I just want to be clear with that. In terms of the process and how it played out, I know that somebody had sent me an email saying, was the communication from today, was that speaking to the last case? And the answer was no. The last case went on Friday, and we closed it with the follow-up on Monday. Today is a new case, and it's a form communication that's going to continue to go. Anytime you get that letter, that's going to be a new case. So I just want to be clear with everyone on that we're not going to customize a letter and write it specific to every individual situation. It is what it is. We had a positive case in that community without providing any further identifying information. So that's where we are. The process played out well. I think our systems and protocols are in place. We've had a lot of communication. Very fortunate for the nurses we have in our district, and very fortunate for the partnership we have with our local Board of Health. So I just wanted to keep the community aware. We are aware that today was the second case in Tyngsborough Public Schools.
So, I was going to say, just so for clarity, the report comes out 10/7, 10/14, but the dates of interest are in the cell above.
Correct.
So because the first case was on 10/2,
Correct.
and then the second case was today, which is 10/6, both of those fall into the window for the 10/14 date,
Yes.
the report. So that's why there's 2 in that date,
Correct.
and there's 1 in the report for tomorrow because it was 10/2.
Correct. Thank you. Yes.
But these people might not live in Tyngsborough, but it's
But they will-
reported
Go ahead, sorry.
in Tyngsborough. Is that how it works? Or how is it worked? Is it reported where they live or where they work?
This is a different number. This
Oh.
this number reflects cases in contact in the school buildings.
Oh,
Regardless of where they live, these are people who are in
I
the
know,
schools.
but the number, the red thing, that, you
It's
know,
separate metrics.
that's separate, okay.
Completely
So
separate
so it's not
metrics.
gonna be reflected on that unless they live in Tyngsborough, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, okay. So it'll be reflected on wherever they live.
Right,
So
but
that's not gonna.
due to privacy concerns, we can't say.
Yeah, oh, I know, yeah.
And then for the communications that you're sending out when an event happens, so far it's been 1 at a time, and hopefully the numbers stay low. If we have more than 1 at a time, say we have 2, would you communicate that it was 2 cases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In general, that's why you won't see the communication until the end of the day.
Yep.
Or as close to the end of the day as possible. Because if there were multiple cases in one day, we would say we had 3 positive cases at TES today. You wouldn't get 3 separate.
Sure.
But it's a daily report, or it's a daily positivity letter communication. So
So this is probably also a good time to thank Derek Piper. I know myself, I believe Becky, along many other people in the community, unfortunately, did not receive the email on Friday. So we heard about it through other means, but we did not receive the actual email. I worked with Derek over the weekend and yesterday, and he was working with Google, and I don't know if there's some setting or something, but they got it resolved. So I received the communication today.
I received it, yep.
So that issue appears to be fixed, so hopefully anybody who didn't get the first one is now getting them.
yeah, that's a good point. I would just bring up anyone who's at home who's watching this or hears about this. If you are having any issue of getting communication, I please ask you to reach out to your building principal, and they will fix that for you immediately.
If you can, Dr. Flanagan, can you go through the process of when you or the administration is notified, what steps we take, and then who eventually takes it over, just so people at home are aware of how the process works and
Sure.
how they would be notified if their child or them as a teacher or whoever.
Sure. So basically, notification comes in, and it's hard to say this is how it works because every case is so very different. Some people are finding out, getting a phone call from their doctor in the middle of the day. Some people are really not coming to work and reporting and calling the school nurse. Generally, communication is made to the school, either the building principal and or the school nurse. Immediately, those two are having a conversation, and reaching out to my office, at which point I work with Dr. Branco and Mrs. Lewenzik, and we put the whole plan in motion. From there, the lead nurse, Michelle Riley, will reach out to our local Board of Health. I will then meet with the administrator at any school, or Mark or Sarah will, and we'll talk about, okay, let's talk about contact tracing, let's look at who we think could be potential issues, and then we reach out again to the local Board of Health to provide that additional information and context. So we're essentially trying to speed up the process. The more information we give the Board of Health, the more efficiently they'll do their job. So we do that on our end. Once we make a determination as to what the contact tracing looks like, then the Board of Health will reach out to those people individually. I will say this, I will say that a lot of local school districts, everyone seems to be doing it a little bit differently. I will say in Tyngsborough, you know, we have desks that are 6 feet apart. We have a 6 foot swath in the front of the room and on the side of the room, or a path, a clearing, you'd say. Mass breaks are taken outside. Snack breaks that happen in the classroom are done 6 feet apart. So if a student in a class were to test positive or to find out they were positive, that doesn't mean we're shutting down an entire classroom. It doesn't necessarily mean the person sitting next to them will be considered a close contact. So we're really looking at every individual situation and how that looks and communicating effectively with our Board of Health to make that determination. Then the Board of Health will be responsible for going through a series of questions with anyone who's suspected or potential close contact. And once they've cleared somebody, they'll let us know, and we can go on from there, and we'll send out the second notification. So that's how it goes. There's a lot of conversation, and it becomes the front burner issue. Everything else kind of goes on hold, so we can make sure that we do this well, thoroughly, efficiently, and communicate as much as we can, as quickly as we can.
And anyone that would be in contact with anyone here in the schools will be notified by the Board of Health, not a member of our school community.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because
Thank you.
it's absolutely the Board of Health's job to do that. Or CTC, whoever the Board of Health helps out with.
And Dr. Flanagan, there's now 2 individuals in our school community that have tested positive. At what are the barriers to re-enter the school population?
So again, they need to be cleared by their PCP. I think they need to be 48 hours symptom-free once they've tested positive. I believe that's what it is. And then they need to have shed the virus and things like that, but that's not my call. I think that's what I believe that's what it is. And honestly, I would pick up Michelle Riley and say, when can they come back? And she would tell me. And she'd be in constant communication with that person.
Okay. Do we not require a negative test?
I don't believe we do. I don't think that's CDC requirements.
No.
I think it's 48 hours symptom-free. It's a fair question. I'll ask Michelle Riley.
So what happens if they're asymptomatic?
If they're asymptomatic and they test positive?
Yes.
I think it's 10 days, wasn't it?
I don't know if it's 10 days or...
So they back it out. They back it out 2 days from when they were seen as positive, and then the clock starts. And then it's a PCP conversation whether they're going to clear that person for work, particularly if it's a staff member. They're going to clear that person for work. If it's a student, many PCPs are going to err on the side of caution and have that child probably quarantined for the full 10 days.
So we require a doctor to clear them.
And once you're contacted by CTC and or the Board of Health, and you're identified as a positive case, they're in communication with you regularly.
Right.
I won't say daily, but at least every other day to find out how you're doing. They're checking on you, and they're going to clear you.
Yeah.
And that's when you fall off the DPH report and that's how you can go back to work. So once you're identified as a positive case, there's somebody assigned.
Excellent.
So that's where we are. So we're on it. We're monitoring, and again, we're going to continue to look at the context and data as we make decisions moving forward. So, Mr. Chair, I want to bring this up because I know we are at the beginning of October now, and the school committee made a commitment to live or learn or exist in a hybrid learning model for the first trimester. Looking at our schedule moving forward, I think it's logical that either on October 20th or November 17th, the school committee make a decision about second trimester, knowing that we start second trimester the Monday after Thanksgiving, which I believe is November 30th. So, I think a conversation needs to be had or a decision needs to be made by this committee as to when you want to make that decision, whether it's October 20th or the November 17th meeting. I will say, just to provide some high-level context, The hybrid learning model, from what we've heard from 2 schools, is going well. It's getting better. We're improving each and every day. And I think we continue to modify that and make adjustments. And whether it's purchasing new technology or throwing out some not throwing out, but abandoning some technology and going a different direction. Every teacher's finding their own comfort level with it. So it is operating, and it's working, and it's going well. If we were to go to a fully, or if the committee were to decide to go to a fully remote learning model, we would have to certainly get notification out to staff and parents, because that could lead to potential child care coverage issues for both staff or parents. Additionally, one of the things that we're hearing is some of the child care centers are more adept at supporting kids with remote learning than others. So certainly something that parents would want to have some time to make a decision on if that were going to be the case. And if we were going to go to a fully in-person learning model, certainly we would need to look at any kind of relief from the CDC guidelines around transportation. We're at 32% limit on the buses. We would need to look at revisiting some of our building, our footprint and our layout and our classroom assignments. And we'd certainly have to revisit the MOA of the TTA in terms of the 6 feet. So those are all different considerations with each learning model. We've talked about these a lot since July. I just want to remind everyone that these are some of the challenges that the committee has to wrestle with. But I think, at least nailing down a timeline on when we want to make that decision or when you'd like to make that decision, or if you'd like to see more information from the administration that we can put together to help you make that decision, we're happy to put anything together. But I think, in fairness to parents, I think we should at least try to nail down a date.
I think we should go for the earlier date, just so people have a chance to react and plan. I don't think November 17th gives anybody enough time if we change the model. I think the other important point to mention is students who are on remote right now are not allowed to come back into the hybrid, but for trimester 2, if they change their mind, we'll allow that. So that could influence classrooms, bus routes, and whatnot. So, if there's a significant number of students who decide to come back, if we go hybrid, then or full in person, we would need to adjust for that. So I think it makes more sense to do it earlier than later.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'm completely opposite in my thought process. I would rather wait till the last minute, November 17th, and see where we are with CDC guidelines, because the majority of, I think, our parents spoke and said, we want our kids back in school full. And I would like them back in school full. If we were to vote to stay hybrid during the second trimester on October 20th, how much time would we need if the CDC did open up the regulations and say, or the transportation is our biggest issue, in my opinion. If we can't bus the kids there, obviously they can't come. Remote learning model, we could do that at any time. We could be forced into that at any time. So that, I don't think we really need to discuss in detail, personally. The hybrid model, if we continue it on November 17th, everything just stays the way it is, and that's what everybody's doing today anyway. The full in-person learning model, to me, is the one that I don't think we should make a decision too early, in my opinion, because some of the things may change between now and November 17th. That's 30 days, almost 30 days. That could make a big difference in full in school and remote or hybrid. My opinion.
It makes sense. You make some good points. I think the 17th is too late. It's less than 2 weeks.
Is there why isn't there a meeting at the beginning of November? We probably discussed this at some point, but
It's election day. The third's election day.
that's what.
It's the county committee voted on this summer.
So I think the 17th is too late, but we could move that meeting to the 10th.
Mr. Chair, I could also make a recommendation that you could vote on the 17th, and it doesn't necessarily have to go in effect 2 weeks later. You could say that we're gonna make this vote, and on January 3rd, when we come back, it'll be full in person. I mean, just because you're making the vote then doesn't mean we have to go there. You said you'd make a decision prior to second trimester.
Yeah.
I thought.
I think we need to commit to the parents and families of giving them a certain window of notice. The younger the students are, the more difficult it is to adapt and switch up and change the schedule. And so I think while I understand the data is changing constantly and we want to make the most relevant decision according to the data that we have, we also need to commit to provide these parents some time to adapt. It's not easy for parents who have 2, 3, 4 kids to adjust, even though it could be sending them to school 5 days a week. That totally changes their entire environment. And so I think we do need to commit to providing them some lead time or runway after the vote to be able to adapt their schedules.
And I think a month is a good amount of time, but I like the idea that Mike said that, we could say, beginning of December, or, it could be pushed out. It wouldn't have to be exactly, right after Thanksgiving or whatever, the beginning of December would be.
Yeah, but the original vote was, we committed for the first trimester. The second trimester begins on the 30th, so we should have a decision for that date.
Could we have a November 10th meeting?
That's what I was going to say. We could move the 17th up to the 10th,
Sure.
and that gives parents, 20 days.
And what I would like,
Mr. Mullins' availability is, but
okay. I would like to see data on how many kids are actually on the buses right now. Is there any data on how many kids are actually taking the buses?
yeah.
Okay. Because, I've heard things, there's 3 kids on my bus, So I'd love to see data, because that, going forward, if we do end up moving to a fully in-person, we need that data to figure out, or maybe it would help us figure out how many kids are going to actually need the spaces if the CDC guidelines get lifted, because that would drive us too. I do understand that.
And are there Massachusetts Department of Health guidelines on the buses, or is it only the CDC that has come out
Well,
with
this is
guidelines?
adopted the CDC guidelines.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Are there any school systems now that are using full in-person with and not following the guidelines of DESE?
So I don't want to start getting to the discussion on, what's what right now.
Yeah.
I would recommend reach out to, Mike, myself, Joe,
Mhm.
with a list of information that you feel will help you make a decision.
Right.
And,
Go from there.
we can have that available. I think the focus right now is, do we want to move the meeting from the 17th to the 10th? I think the 20th is kind of early. I agree with you, but I think the 17th is too late. So I think moving that 17th meeting to the 10th would make sense.
I will make a motion to move the November 17th, 2020 school committee meeting to November 10th, provided we have no other obligations at that time.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0-0. So we'll plan on making that decision on the 10th.
Okay. In terms of information, I'll work through the chair.
Yep.
All right, next slide. So this slide's blowing up now. So, November 17th is obviously not November 10th, but this is just a list of upcoming school committee meetings and/or negotiation subcommittee meetings. Negotiation subcommittee meets tomorrow night with the TTA, and on the 14th. We'll be back here on October 20th, school committee, then on the 28th and 4th, negotiation meets with Council 93. And November 10th will be the school committee meeting, and then December 1, December 15th. So that's what the upcoming meetings schedule is. We will amend the calendar, the meeting calendar on our website tomorrow for the November 10th meeting.
Thank you.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, new business. We need to elect a representative as the Tyngsborough School Committee MASC voting delegate for the online annual MASC meeting scheduled for November 7th at 1 p.m.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to nominate Robert Mullen.
I will second that motion.
Wow. Any discussion?
I can feel the love.
No discussion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Somebody should text Mr. Mullen and let him know. Finance, Mr. Messina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 7 bill warrants were presented to the committee tonight. I do have them all back approved. In your drive is the list of warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts. No payroll tonight since we met last week and did the played catch up with those payrolls, and nothing under other tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
School committee discussion. Staff Natalie?
I'm all set, thank you.
All set, thank you.
Is that?
I'm good tonight, thank you.
I'm all set. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the kids from the middle school, Dr. Pollitt, for coming up this evening and doing their presentation. And other than that, I'm all set.
I would like to second that. I think they did an awesome job. They're well spoken, and I really like the format they used with the slides and explaining each part of the day. I enjoyed that. Thank you. I'm all set. Thanks.
Great job, Ryan and Grace, did a nice job tonight, so it's good to see them. I love hearing from the kids each year, hearing their perspective and insight, so nice job.
Yeah, this is my favorite meetings when the kids come out. My first year or two, maybe, we used to bring them all in one meeting, and it felt very rushed and crammed. I love that we separated it and we spread them out and give them a chance to breathe. So these are great meetings. We do have a need for executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body as declared by the chair. We will return from the executive session only to adjourn the regular session meeting. This action requires a roll call vote.
In favor?
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
In favor still.
In favor. In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Carry 6-0. We are in executive session. Have a good night.